Some fires don't just give light. They hold back something in the dark that should never be seen. 300 years after the apocalypse, the descendants of the survivors live not in cities, but in their skeletons. High above the vine-choked ruins of what was once called Manhattan, the Stone Tree clan survives among the rooftops, rooted in memory, in fire, and in the sacred stories passed down from firekeeper to child. They remember the warnings. They remember the sins. And they live by the law spoken since the first fires were lit. Stay close to the flame. Remember the stories as they were taught. And never, ever go down into the dark alone. This is a story about blood, belief, and the price of breaking from tradition, when tradition is the only thing keeping you alive. I'm James Cawley, and this is Dust and Echoes. Each week I bring you one of my original stories, told in the rhythm of oral tradition, wrapped in firelight, and pulled from the places we dare not go. For 300 years, they've told the same story, whispered it across rooftops, and into the ears of children who know not to look down. I call this story The Down Dark. The fire breathed. It was the only heart the Stone Tree clan had left. They gathered in the husk of what the long-ago people had once called a square garden amongst the bones of a once great city reclaimed by nature. The bones of steel and glass, twisted into ribs reaching toward an open sky filled with late afternoon clouds high above them. All around them, the dead city was quiet. Its flat canyons, once bearing names such as Fifth and Park, are now long, narrow mud flats filled with tall reeds and grasses. Places where the clan's hunters now stalked ducks and deer. Its loud voice long since swallowed by time. But the clan would come down to this sacred place from high above where they lived on the rooftops, kept safe from the dangers that emerged in the darkness down here, protected at the top of the stone trees that had once gone by the name from a long-ago tongue. It was once called a Manhattan. The firekeeper of the Stone Tree clan, Elja, raised his hands to quiet his people, old bent hands that were maps of soot and bone. The crowd fell silent. No title, no greeting, just silence. And then, as always, he told the story. This same story has been told in the exact same way since the Stone Tree clan emerged from the darkness in old times. A story passed down through words and tone from firekeeper to firekeeper for over 300 years. Each firekeeper telling it the same way. Not one word changed. Not one tone altered. Elja's old cracked lips began speaking the words in rhythm, and the clan sitting all around him on the ancient faded stadium seats listened. His voice was dry, carved from dust. The old ones had too much, he said. Their hands were full, but their hearts were empty. They forgot the soil that fed them. They forgot they were all connected, that they were all brothers and sisters. They forgot Dema Appa, the All-Father. They dug and built the old cities like this one our clan is named after. But they also stole from each other, took up arms against each other, and killed each other. And in their greed, in their selfishness, they let darkness get inside of them. They were once a great and united clan, but then they broke apart, fractured like a stone into pieces. Once they were broken apart into those two pieces, they took sides against each other. And then, when they could no longer understand or respect each side's words and values, the darkness inside them took over, and they lit the sky on fire, destroying both sides of the stone. A log cracked in the flames. Sparks flew up like curses. The clan's eyes focused on the storyteller, fathers holding children close in the silence of the moment. Dema Appa watched with great sadness as they fought about things such as ownership, power, and control. The All-Father did not ignite the flame that burned down their world. They burned the world themselves. When it was over, and the great sky fires finally stopped burning, Dema Appa let the waters rise to cleanse the ash from the land. He let the trees and grasses grow once more, and he let the beasts return from their hiding places in the roots of the world. Elya's eyes swept the gathered faces. Children, hunters, elders, all wrapped in fur and shadow. But as we all know, not all of the evil was cleansed from this world. Below us, even as we sit here now, it lives on, down deep under the bones of our stone trees, in the wetness of tunnels, in the down dark. It waits. Darkness that still remembers the heat given by false fires. His voice dropped to a whisper. Darkwalkers. They wear the dead world's face, breathe with lungs made of smoke and roots. They come when the moon is wrong and the wind warns us, and they will take the ones who wander from the fire. This fire. The old man gestured not to the flames of the fire near him, but to the people themselves. And if you are taken into the down dark, you are never seen again. The fire burned low. There was no applause, no speaking, just the knowing that the story had ended until the next moon, when it would be retold once more. The crowd scattered like leaves, weary and slowly wandering into the growing shadows. It was rare for them to come down from the safety of the stone trees, but this was the place for the telling of this story. So even the oldest of elders rode on the backs of young hunters to be present at its telling, for it was a tradition that could not be broken. But with nightfall approaching, they begin the long journey up the crumbling stairwells, back to the safety in the boughs of the stone tree above. Enta lingered for a moment. Her younger brother Cal pressed against her side close. "Do you think the stories are real?" he asked. Enta didn't answer right away. She was watching the steel beams above them, where the clouds moved behind broken metal teeth. "I think it's a story meant to scare you," she said. "But do you think it's true?" She looked at him then. Really looked. His face was sharp with youth, but his eyes held that dangerous thing no story could scare out of him: wonder and curiosity. "The world burned for a reason, Cal. It died because people wanted more than they needed and forgot each other. You don't need to know if the stories are true, just to remember what we have here, together." She hugged him, pulling him in closer. He reached into his coat and pulled something out. A small flat disc, dull silver metal, worn smooth except for the faint outline of an old world man's face in profile, his hair pulled back in a braid of sorts. "This was theirs," he whispered. "Dad gave it to me before he—" Enta's jaw tightened. She looked around to be sure they were not being watched by any of those leaving around them. "Put it away." "He said he found it in the tunnels." He paused, unsure if he should have mentioned that part to his sister. "He didn't go all the way in, though. He found it in a broken machine in the dirt. What could it have been for?" "It doesn't matter. They are all dead now." He lowered the coin but didn't put it away. "It matters to me." Enta stood and pulled him to follow. They fell in line with the others who were beginning the long climb back up the broken old stairs. They passed Tyan and several other hunters as they stood guard at the bottom with weapons drawn, making sure that everyone was present. "You're not going to out-hunt me again tomorrow," Taeon said as she passed with a grin. She shrugged her shoulders as they passed. "Well, if you learned to hunt, it might actually help." He laughed, and they exchanged a look and a smile. Cal saw this and made a smooch face. Enta pushed him forward. "Enough. Let's get you up all these stairs and to bed, little brother." Their home was warm, small. The hearth burned low, its smoke curling out through a long-ago broken window. Small pieces of ancient yellowed glass were found and stacked like trophies along the edge. Beyond it, the rotted bones of a long-forgotten city disappeared into the darkness of night. The old herbs hanging from the walls were placed there by their mother the year she became sick. She kept them up as they still held a faint smell that reminded Enta of her. Enta pulled the leather tight that secured the doorskin across the old room's entryway. As she tied the knot, they heard the third horn blow, 3 sharp sounds, one after another, biting into the night. Nobody except for hunters on guard duty were allowed outside after third horn, not for anything. Everyone knew of the dangers in the night. The reasons the stairwells that lead up here were guarded and blocked. Cale yawned wide and curled into his sleeping fur, falling asleep instantly. Through his little fingers, she could see the silver coin he cherished shimmering in the soft light. Any relic from the old world was strictly forbidden. But this was a special gift their father had given him before he died. So she allowed him to keep it, but only after he promised that he would keep it hidden. She watched him for a long time. She thought of her mother and her strength up until the end. How hard she'd fought the coughing sickness. She thought of her father, and how he shared the secrets of his explorations with Cale, and how she didn't think her little brother would ever speak again after their father died. But eventually he did, and they became closer than she could have ever imagined, bonded by loss in a world left behind and silent. She closed her eyes and drifted off. Something startled her awake from a deep sleep. Then she heard it again. The horn blew twice. Danger. Cale, are you awake? We need to be ready, she whispered in the dark. Enta was up before the horn's echoes stopped, knife in hand. The coals in the hearth had gone out, and the room was flooded in darkness. Cale? Something was not right. Wind touched her face. The doorskin was unlatched. Open. She ripped back her brother's sleeping fur and saw nothing. Cale was gone. She couldn't swallow, and she was sure her heartbeat was so loud everyone in the clan could hear it. She ran into the hall barefoot, past other dwellings cracking open, elders blinking into the dark. Hunters gathered in confusion. People muttered prayers. At the edge of the main stairs, she saw him. Cale. He was being held by Taeon, the lead hunter. The man's face was tight with anger. He was here at the stairs, standing in the darkness, he said. Its hand almost had him, Enta. A dark walker was reaching through. It almost had your brother. Enta's stomach turned to ash as Taeon talked, his eyes black coals of anger and fright. A dark walker was halfway through the breach, and your brother, this little fool, was walking towards it. Cale was pale, shaking. It said my name. Taeon held up something between his fingers as he pushed her brother towards her. The coin. She gripped her shaking brother by the shoulders. He had this, he growled. This is what brought them to us. Enta stepped forward, trying to shield Cale. You let him bring it into our home, Taeon said. You let him keep the shiny things that misled the old ones. You've invited the dark back in. Enta's voice broke. It was our father's. Taeon's eyes narrowed, then he turned and walked to the edge of the open stairwell, the broken place where the world fell away into the green-black canyons below. Without a word, he threw the coin down and Cale screamed, No! He lunged forward, but Enta grabbed him. Taeon looked back once, his face unreadable. You're lucky I don't bring this to the firekeeper, he said. You'd both be banished. But you're one of us, a hunter. And that is the only reason that I won't report this to the firekeeper. The horn blew once with a sharp upturn at the end. She knew that meant the search was complete. No intruders found in the safe zone. 2 hunters finished replacing the wood and metal barrier door at the stairwell. Taeon double-checked the door and used his torch to peer into the darkness beyond. Content it was secured, he turned to speak to the community peering out from behind their doors, and the group of hunters awaiting his orders. Everyone, all is under control. You are safe. Go back to your homes, but keep alert and inside. He then turned to the hunters. All hunters will be on guard tonight. He turned to look at Enta. Except you. She looked into his eyes, trying not to show her emotion, and nodded. The dawn never truly came. The morning's light came slow, weak, gray through fog storms and the ruins of the dead world. Enta woke to meet it, but her brother did not. His bed was cold, the furs tossed to the side. His moccasins by the door were gone, and the leather strap holding the door fur closed was untied and dangling. He was gone. Her breath caught in her throat as she crossed the room, fingers brushing the edge of his sleeping mat. She lifted his sleeping furs, knowing he was not under them. Couldn't be, only to find nothing, just as she suspected. She didn't scream. Enta never screamed. But her stomach sank like a heavy stone dropped into thick mud. She pulled her clothing on and ran out into the morning. Only a few elders were awake. She smelled their morning tea brewing behind high doors. She searched the rooftop first and the high walkways strung between hollowed towers, where the clan kept their smoke pits, their herb racks, and scrap forges. She searched the garden tower, where cabbage root and blackleaf clung to old soil that had been carried up here bucket by bucket from the world below. She searched the water towers, still catching rain through metal ribs and vines thick as muscle. No kale, no sound, just the wind and the creak of the old bones of the world. Then she returned to the stairwell. She didn't want to look here for fear of what she might find. She hoped she'd find him eating an early breakfast or tending to their mother's old herb plot. But she found what she feared. She scanned the barrier. One panel near the base had been loosened, barely enough for an adult to notice, but just wide enough for a child to crawl through. Her breath caught. There had been more guards stationed here after the breach, but Cale had been listening to their routes and rhythms, watching, asking questions. He was smart. Too smart. She cursed under her breath. He must have slipped through during a shift change, in the narrow moments when patrols overlapped but didn't cover the grate at the base. His obsession with the coin, the stories, their father. He went to look for it. She knew it. And she ran. By the time she reached the firekeeper's chamber, her breath was ragged. She entered without knocking. Elia stood over the flame pit, whispering something to the bones he always laid there before dawn. Animal bones, bird bones, human bones, some said. The fire spoke back in tongues only he claimed to understand. He looked up as she entered, eyes narrowing. Tyon was already there, briefing him on the night's breach, and shocked to see her step into the room. "My brother's gone," she said. The room stilled. "He went after the relic you threw off the edge last night." The firekeeper did not speak, but sat onto his stone and looked toward Tyon. Tyon lowered his head and looked away. He closed his eyes, knowing he would now have to explain why he hadn't reported this serious matter. A relic was not allowed in the community. Everyone knew this. He had been in charge of banishing others who held information like this. "He was holding it when I found him last night during the breach. I should have told you about it, Keeper." The Keeper stared at him fiercely and raised an eyebrow for him to continue. "But I have feelings for Enta, and was afraid she would be banished." His face reddened, and he glanced at her quickly. Enta already knew this. Everyone knew this. The firekeeper's face didn't change as he spoke, but the fire cracked louder. "We know the Dark Walkers are near. I know what you are here to ask me. You wish to go beyond the stairs and look for him. I'm afraid I cannot risk you being lost too, Enta," Elia said. "We must pray and hope for your brother to return on his own." "He's just a child," Enta said. "If the Dark Walkers took him," Elia replied, "he is already dead." She stepped forward. "I don't believe that." The firekeeper looked down. "I'm so sorry, Enta. I just cannot allow it." Tyon stepped forward now, his voice calm but firm. "Let me go with her. It was my anger that caused this. Let me help make this right." Let me go with her, keeper. We will return by dusk, with or without him. I give you my word, or I will banish myself. He knelt in front of the keeper. Elia studied him a long moment and looked back to Enta. You both would risk banishment? Yes, Enta said. Elia sighed, looking again into the flame. You and your brother are the last of your family's line, he said to her. If you die below, the blood of that tree dies with you. Many before you have given everything to keep those roots alive. Are you willing to risk this? Yes. Another silence. Then he nodded, just once. If you're not back by the sunfall, the stairs will be sealed and you will not be welcome back here again. Do you agree to this? Enta didn't speak. She bowed her head. Tyan did the same. The firekeeper blessed them, and they rushed to gather what they would need and met at the stairwell. Tyan looked damaged, but his strength still showed. Below, the eroded concrete steps of 100 floors of switchback staircases faded into darkness. They had made this journey many times with other hunters, searching for game for their people. But this felt like the first time they had ever done it. Tyan lit a torch. The flame flared blue for a moment, an old trick of dried mushroom oil, then settled into gold. He handed it to Enta, then lit his own. I meant what I said, he told her, and I'm sorry for what I've caused. Enta didn't answer. She was looking down, not at the stairs, but into memory. He said it talked like hollow rusted pipes. Tyan looked at her and tapped the spear on her back. If it can talk, we can kill it. She nodded and stepped forward. And with that, they descended, one step at a time. The light that reached the ground never looked like real sunlight. It was soft and bent, like it had to fight through too many broken things to make it this far. Enta and Tyan stepped out of the stairwell together and extinguished their torches while staring across the crumbled ruins of what the long-ago ones had once called a city. Steel beams jutted like broken ribs from tilted towers. Vines as thick as arms curled around rusted signs whose words no one remembered how to read. The road beneath their feet was soft with age and overgrowth, the black stone broken by time and root. Long ago it had been called Fifth Avenue. But to the Stone Tree clan, it was just the canyon flats where they hunted. When they came down here in full groups, they moved slowly. There were creatures down here that the hunters stalked, and also ones that would stalk them. Shadow cats were the worst. Fast, quiet, deadly. They hunted the birds mostly, but sometimes they encountered new animals whose ancestors had descended from things that long ago escaped from a zoo. But they were used to those. They could track those, and knew how to avoid the rare predators that lurked in darkness. What they were looking for today, what Enta feared she would encounter, wasn't something they knew how to track. There had been many stories of the Dark Walkers within the Stone Tree clan, and there was a reason the Firekeeper told that story every moon cycle. They were not just stories to keep children from wandering down the stairs and exploring beyond the clan's sight. They were real. Creatures that had taken dozens of their people in the night since Enta was born. Tyan walked slightly ahead, spear in hand. The smell of mud and rot was heavy. A nearby tower groaned as something shifted inside. Enta kept her eyes to the ground, and there, near the edge of a half-submerged wreck of a long, crumbled cart, she found it. There. Kel's footprints, small, bare, pressed into the mud, still fresh. She knelt and touched the ground, her hand steady despite the pit growing in her chest. He'd been here. Right here. Likely looking for the coin. She turned and looked up at the top of the stone tree where they lived, and this is where it would have landed. She pictured him on hands and knees, crawling through the dirt, eyes scanning for that last piece of their father. Then she saw it. The scene around his footprints had changed. Churned earth, deep drag marks, prints, but not his. Her breath stopped. The other tracks were smooth, heavy, unnatural, a single pair. Tyon stepped up beside her, and she saw it hit him. "Dark Walker," he muttered. Kale's tracks stopped right there, his last step a shallow imprint just before the place where the drag lines began. "No blood," Enta said, relieved, her voice barely a whisper. "It doesn't mean," Tyon began, then hesitated. She followed the drag trail with her eyes, then followed quickly, sinking into the mud every few steps. Tyon yelled from behind her as he tried to keep up. She followed them away from the clearing, down what had once been a narrow side street, now flooded in thick green water, then curved toward more stairs leading down into a tunnel mouth covered in faded ancient blue and white tiles, the entrance shaft choked in vines. On the wall were faded letters, and an arrow pointing into the tunnel. 50th Street Station, E and F lines. "You know what that is, Enta," Tyon said. Her eyes were fixed on the muddy footprints going down those steps. She whispered it, not meaning to say it out loud. The down dark. She could hear water dripping and moving down there. She lit her torch again. The flame struggled in a gust of wind that blew from inside the tunnel. It carried a smell with it. Not death, but something older than rot. Unfamiliar. Wet. Ancient. Tyon grabbed her arm. "Don't be stupid," he said. "You know what that place is. Nobody's ever gone into the down dark. It's forbidden. My father did." He froze. "That's where he found the relic you threw." "You hear the water. One mistake." He pointed at her torch. "And you'll be stuck in that darkness forever." "I have to. He's all I have left. What about me?" She closed her eyes and knew she couldn't live with herself if she didn't do this. She knew that Tyon loved her, and deep inside she knew that she loved him too, and always thought that someday they'd make the bond and start a family of their own. But how could she do that if she hated herself? She knew this was the only way. He loosened the grip on her wrist and his face softened. "Enta, he's gone." Enta ripped her wrist from his grip. "You don't know that." His eyes were pleading with her, and in those eyes she saw the child he once was. No one who's gone into the down dark has ever come back. Enta took a slow breath. "Then I'll be the first." Tyon stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "I forbid it. I don't care. You'll be lost. Then I'll be lost." His voice cracked. "Please, Enta." She hesitated. "Don't do this. Please. His words caught. "I love you." The world stilled. Even the wind seemed to die for a breath. Enta didn't look away. She watched him break, just a little, in front of her. "Then come with me." I can't." "Why?" "Because it's forbidden." "You know that." She looked at him and he could see she was not changing her mind. "And I'm afraid." The words landed like stone. "There, are you happy now?" "I said it. I'm afraid, and I hate myself for it." Enta looked at him a long moment. The firelight from her torch flickered between them. She leaned in and touched his face and kissed him on the cheek softly. She pushed past him and stepped down into the tunnel. As the sounds of dripping water filled her ears and his voice faded, the last thing she heard him say was, "I'll be watching, waiting for your return. I love you." Then the dark swallowed her. The torch sputtered against the thick damp, casting shadows across the old tile walls, covered in vines and decay. Strange symbols carved in by others long ago flickered past as she moved. Some marked in red, others gouged in with nails and knives. She kept going. She would find Kale. She would bring him home. Or she would find whatever took him and make it pay for what it did. The tunnel swallowed the last of the light behind her. Enta's torch cracked with a low hiss, the flame fluttering against the cold breath of the down dark. Damp air clung to the walls like sweat. thick with the scent of mud, decay, and the rot of old iron. Her feet slid in the mud, covering the old tiled floor, each step a struggle to stay upright. Up ahead, the tunnel bent. The footprints were still there, smooth, heavy, dragging along the mud-choked edge of the tunnel floor. Enta pressed on, one hand tight on the torch, the other against the wall for balance. Something creaked behind the old walls. Pipes moaned. Somewhere above, water dripped in a steady rhythm. She moved faster, following the tunnel as it snaked past rusted metal gates. A monster appeared in silhouette ahead of her, blocking her passage forward. It looked like a huge metal worm with eyes of ancient glass. The muddy footprints continued between two rusted iron rails toward this large machine worm and entered into a door built into its side. She followed, realizing it must be some kind of old world machine. She stepped into the doorway and into the interior of the worm that had burrowed this tunnel, and was shocked at what she saw. There were chairs, like the ones in the square garden, in rows going back into the darkness of the interior. As she followed the footprints, her torch illuminated human skulls and bones piled on these chairs and crunched under her feet, instantly turning into a yellow dust. A tomb. The remnants of an old-world tomb in the darkness. Then another door, and the footprints went back out. She was back in the open tunnel once again. The ground was muddier here, and she began to sink up to her ankles in the rancid sludge. She became absolutely aware that something else was down here with her. She heard it, a loud sound ahead. Metal clanked and echoed. Enta ran forward quickly and came over a mound of rubble. She gasped as a strange bright light moved ahead of her, illuminating the entire tunnel. A silhouette of a backlit figure, not far ahead, walking away from her. And it held something in its arms. Kel. "Stop!" she screamed. The figure jerked, and then the bright light found her and blinded her. She had never seen such brightness. She lost her balance on the mound, and the world turned upside down. Her back scraped down the slope, and the light disappeared as she fell. The torch slammed down, hissed, and died. Everything went black. No, not black. Complete, total darkness. Her breath caught in her throat as she scrambled forward, fingers digging into wet earth, hands sinking into mud in search of the torch. Her palms scraped something sharp, glass or bone. She didn't know. Then, a sound. Footsteps in the darkness. The dark walker. It was coming closer. If it got to her in the darkness, it was all over. For her and for her brother. Her mind flashed back to Cale's description of the thing that reached out to him in the stairwell. The thing with roots growing from its face. The thing with a hollow, rusted metal voice. Enta's left hand flew to her belt, digging through pouches until her fingers wrapped around the cold metal of her steel, and found the flint. Her other hand found the torch. Soaked, she cursed under her breath. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She thought the creature might be very close now. The torch's cloth was treated with a wax oil mixture, mushroom resin, water-resistant. She'd tried to light wet torches before without success. Once it gets wet, it has to dry for a few hours. But with that thing crawling towards her in the darkness, the thing with roots growing from its neck, she didn't have time. So she said a prayer. She struck the flint and steel. Small sparks illuminated the darkness. The torch did not catch. She thought she could hear breathing now, not human breathing, hollow, like wind through rusted pipe. She struck again. Spark. It caught, then vanished. She held her breath, struck again. Flame, small, barely there, but it grew. The cloth flared. The tunnel lit up around her once more. She pulled the spear from her back, grateful it was still in one piece, and thrust it in front of her, expecting the monster to be right above her. But she was alone. The tunnel was empty. Her body trembled. She would not let it take him. She had come this far, and she vowed she would die before she let it take him. Her hunter instincts kicked in, and she started to run. Not worried about slipping, not worried about the nightmare she would encounter face to face in the darkness, but with rage, anger, and revenge boiling in her blood. The tunnel ahead had changed. The air shifted, buzzed, a hum low and steady, like a sleeping animal beneath the floor. Then she saw it, a glow, pale, white-blue. Enta froze. It wasn't fire. It didn't flicker. It just was bright, steady, trapped in glass boxes hanging along the wall. Dozens of them, stretching off into the distance. Magic fire, but cold. She stopped running and reached up, touched one quickly, expecting it to be hot. It was warm, but not burning. The light filled the corridor like daylight had once filled the outside world. With this strange light, she no longer needed the torch. She dropped it and ran faster. Her shadow bent and twisted across the tunnel in the strange light as she ran. Then, a noise like nothing she'd ever heard. A heavy, mechanical groan echoed through the tunnel ahead, like a giant steel mouth opening after centuries of silence. She ran toward it. The hallway curved, and as she rounded the corner, her breath caught. Ahead was a wall. But not a wall. A door. Round. Massive. Embedded in the stone and rusted earth. Lights flickered around it, red, then yellow, then green. Symbols blinked. Somewhere inside, gears screamed and something massive began to turn. A loud click, a grinding sound like mountains being chewed. And then, the door began to open. Steam hissed from its seams. And in the center of the doorway, bathed in a sudden shaft of bright, clean light unlike anything Enta had ever seen, stood the creature. It turned at the sound of her steps, and she saw it fully now. Its shape wasn't right. The body bulky, covered in layers of rubbery material and metal, patches and tubes twisting along its back. Its face was hidden behind a cracked visor, a dirty square glass. But it held Kale in its arms, limp and still. Enta's rage roared, and for the first time in her life, a scream ripped from her chest, loud and raw, as she raised her spear and charged. "Give my brother back!" The creature jerked back, startled. It didn't fight. It backed up. Its feet scraped the metal floor behind the door, and she realized it was afraid. As she closed in, her arm pulled back to thrust her spear deep into the monster's neck. But then it turned sideways, shielding Kale with its body, raising a hand as if to block her. The cracked visor tilted toward her, and she saw, through the dirt-streaked glass, a face. A human face. A man, about her age, maybe younger. His face was pale, drawn, terrified. He wasn't a monster. He was scared. But before she could move again, a sound split the air. High-pitched, blaring. Red lights erupted across the frame of the vault door. She dropped her spear and covered her ears. The boy behind the visor flinched, clutching Kyle tighter, and then figures emerged from inside. Black clothing, heads covered in metal bowls, weapons like spears but black, held against shoulders, pointed at her. They shouted, "Stop! Down! Don't move!" Enta stood frozen for a moment, breathing hard, blinded by bright lights, shaking with fear and rage, her eyes on the boy holding her brother. She had followed Kale into the down dark. She'd found him. But what she had found down here was something else entirely. Something worse than monsters. People. With machines. With power. With rules. And they were afraid of her too. She screamed again, not knowing what else to do. She looked down at her spear on the wet ground. A woman's voice came from behind one of the black masks. "Don't do it." She reached. The back of one of their spears struck her across her forehead. Everything went black. Enta awoke in white. The room was so clean it felt unreal, like the inside of a shell or a bone hollowed out by time. The bed beneath her was soft. Too soft. She hated it instantly. Her wrists were strapped down with thin synthetic bands, and clear cords connected her to a beeping machine beside her. Tiny green lights blinked in rhythm with every breath she took. To her right, Cal, still asleep. Face pale, chest rising and falling beneath strange cloth. Wires trailed from his arms, and a monitor blinked beside him, a rhythm she didn't understand. He didn't stir, not even when she whispered his name. Cal. Her voice was a dry whisper. Her throat burned. Then, the door slid open. A man entered. He was older, hair cropped short, skin dark like burnt stone, wearing a white coat that shimmered slightly under the overhead lights. He paused, studied her like they had known each other for years. "My name is Dr. Harmond. Don't be worried, my dear. You're safe here. I assume you can understand me. All the children have been able to. It seems we still speak the same language for the most part. I'm very sorry for that little bump on your head. Things may have gotten a bit out of hand. My apologies. Let's just say, we don't get many visitors down here." He nodded towards Cal. "He's safe too, just a little sleepy from the medicine we gave him." Enta didn't believe him. She pulled at the straps, testing them quietly. "What have you done to him?" The doctor didn't flinch. He stepped closer, hands raised, empty, harmless. Too calm. "We helped him. He was accidentally injured when our scout came across him. A sedative was necessary. It's temporary." His voice was gentle, but something behind it made her skin crawl. There was no warmth behind the words, only calculation. She thought of the scuff marks where Cal was dragged. This wasn't an accident. This was a hunt. She said nothing. The doctor sighed and sat beside her. The light above hummed softly. "I'm so very glad to meet you. And please, understand. We're not here to hurt anyone. We're scientists, survivors of the Great War, just like you. Only, some might say, luckier." He smiled, like that meant something. She didn't smile back. "Our ancestors built this place before the war. This facility. It's called Earthseed Cradle, one of many cradles buried beneath the cities and mountains. Sanctuaries for the best minds, the brightest leaders, and those who paid for it all. Our ancestors built this all to preserve, let's just say, the best of humanity, until we can return to the surface and rebuild it all again." The words slid like oil across water, never sinking. He stood. Enta stayed silent. He walked over to Cale and gently brushed the hair from his forehead. The gesture made her stomach turn. She flexed, quietly, testing her strength. She wouldn't break the straps, not now. She would find another way. "We are not kidnappers or monsters," he continued almost casually. "Everyone we've taken over the years is alive, thriving. They've been adopted into families here. They're safe, educated, loved, living better lives than they could have had above." Enta's voice cracked for the first time, dry and sharp. "You stole them from us." The doctor turned to face her. Concern painted across his face. Artificial, practiced. "Oh, my dear, I know it may look that way, and I understand how it must feel. But please, let me explain why what you did, just by coming here, may have saved us all." He moved closer, lowering his voice. A whisper wrapped in silk. "Over the centuries living down here, we've changed. And forgive the science. I know it may sound strange, but our DNA, our very biology, has failed us. Generations of isolation, inbreeding, contaminated nutrition. 60 years ago, we began to see irreversible mutations, infertility, organ failure." Enta didn't fully understand the words, but she understood what he meant. They were dying. His tone shifted, reverent now, like speaking of gods. "But then, our sensors above discovered you, your people, the Stone Tree Clan, alive in a world that we couldn't breathe in. You've adapted. You breathe poisoned air, and you survive. That makes you special. You're the future. His eyes shined. And that's why we had to do this. We needed you, your children, to survive. Without your blood, your resilience, we would have all died. But now, because of you, there's hope. Anta stiffened, her chest burned. You took him. He ignored it. You coming down here is a miracle. You could be the key to saving every soul in the cradle. You could be a bridge to the surface. You could bring light back to the world. Her voice shook, but her eyes were hard. You stole our children. Why would I ever help you? He paused and didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved to the window and looked out into a hall of light. His shoulders were heavy, or maybe pretending to be. We're on the brink of a breakthrough, he said, one that would let us live above again. But to complete it, we need more DNA. He turned back to her. Here's the deal. We'll let you go. You can walk out of here. No tricks. Go back to your people. Tell them we need help. Just a vial of blood, a lock of hair. That's all. He leaned in. In return, we'll share everything. Medicine. Light. Machines that would change everything. No more death from disease. No more hunting shadows. Your people would thrive. Enta thought of her mother, coughing blood into rags. Of her father, his wound festering in the dark despite every prayer and poultice. They could have lived. But then she thought of something else. The firekeeper's story. The world that burned itself alive. These were its children, still breathing. What if I don't help you? She asked quietly. Dr. Harmon didn't blink. I hope you will. But if not, I'm afraid your brother stays here. You'll never see him again. But that was the moment her hunter's eyes picked up on his weakness. Desperation. He was the last thread holding their future. Without him, the chain broke. She nodded slowly, a hunter's nod, and she lied to him. I'm a firekeeper, a leader of my people, so if I speak, they will listen to me. She saw his eyes widen. He tried to hide his excitement. She knew how to trick beasts, even the predators. This is wonderful. Meant to be, some might even say, divine intervention. A smile split across his face, the first real smile she had seen him wear. You have no idea how important you are. As a savior, he believed her, and with that, the trap closed. There's just one thing we must do first, she said, or my people will never trust you. Anything, he said. You must come with me. Go through the firekeeper's ceremony. It's the only way they'll believe your heart is true. He froze. Just a moment. Then nodded. I've never left the cradle. I'll need to bring 2 men with me. He hesitated. But he stays. He pointed to Kale. Until I return. Enta looked at her brother, still unconscious, still pale. She thought of all the others taken before, claimed to be happy, safe. She didn't believe it. Not anymore. She met the doctor's eyes and lied again. I will help you. You can trust me. They left at first light. Enta led the way, her pace steady, her senses sharp. The guards followed, clad in black armor, strange weapons slung across their waists. Their radiation suits squeaked and slowed them down as they traveled back through the darkness of the tunnel. The doctor talked too much. She ignored him. They emerged into the wide canyons of the city, overgrown concrete, steel ribs. Ahead, smoke curled from the rooftop of the stone tree. 2 sharp horn blows echoed. Enta smiled faintly. Tyon was watching. She knew he would be. What does that mean? The doctor asked. A welcome signal, she lied. They approached the building, the stairwell, home. The firekeeper stood alone at the base, no expression, just burning herbs in one hand and a prayer on his lips. She knew the spears were hidden above. She knew her people were watching. Taeon stepped out beside the firekeeper, eyes wide and fierce. Enta raised her hands. The guards tensed. Dr. Harmon stepped beside her, raising a hand in peace. Hello, my name is... A liar! Enta's voice cracked the air like lightning. Gasps. Stone tree hunters stepped into view. Dozens. Spears raised. They stole our children for their blood, she said, voice rising. They live in the down dark. They call themselves saviors. Gods. But they are monsters. Thieves. Dr. Harmon turned sharply. Wait. This is a mistake. If we don't stop them now, she shouted, they will come again. And next time, they won't ask. One of the guards moved. Too fast. A mistake. Spears struck. Both guards dropped, screaming. Taeon stepped forward, eyes locked on her. This is the man? She nodded. Taeon moved past her. Dr. Harmon raised his hands. The glass of his helmet fogged. Taeon ripped it off. The doctor gasped, lungs burning in poisoned air. He dropped to his knees, choking, eyes wild. You don't have to live like this, he gasped. We can help you. We can rebuild the world. The firekeeper stepped beside Enta. He looked at her, long and deep. Then he said, sometimes, to be free of the darkness, we must embrace it. One last time. Taeon held out his spear and she took it. The doctor sobbed. Please, there are thousands down there. Kids. You'll never see your brother again. She didn't answer. Etna embraced the darkness and did what needed to be done for her people. The end. That was The Down Dark, written and performed by me, James Cawley. A story about survival, silence, and what gets buried when the world ends. For 300 years, the Stone Tree clan has lived among the bones of the old world, in a culture shaped not by conquest, but by memory, fire, and story. They were the survivors, the ones who listened, the ones who remembered. They didn't rebuild the world that was lost. They built a new way to live, rooted in land, in family, in law passed down from firekeeper to child. It's a truth that should sound familiar, because the old world didn't just burn, it buried itself, along with its hunger for control and its belief that those closest to the earth could be used, studied, or saved. Thank you for listening to Dust and Echoes. Each week I bring you one of my original stories, told in the rhythm of firelight and memory, echoing the voices and warnings we too often forget. If this story spoke to you, you're not alone, and you're right where you need to be. Please take a minute to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. It really does help me more than you know, and it only takes a minute of your time. Want to see what story is coming next? Visit my website at enterthedust.com. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate you. Until next time, remember this: there is an endless amount of light in this world, and the darkness can never take away your light unless you let it.